Days of Our Lives, 5 Horrifying Secrets Revealed. The Diamera crypt had always been a place of whispered legends and buried sins, but that night, it felt alive. A single lantern flickered against cold stone walls as Melina Evans stood frozen at the entrance. The iron door creaked behind her, sealing her inside with the past. The air smelled of damp earth, and something else. Metallic. Sharp. Blood. Fresh blood streaked the ancient floor, leading deeper into the crypt, toward the newest grave. One that wasn't supposed to exist. Carved into the marble in trembling letters were the words. Melina's heart pounded as a horrifying realization struck her. Whatever secrets Johnny Diamera had been hiding, Salem was about to bleed for them. Johnny Diamera had always been known as the Golden Son, the filmmaker with the soulful eyes, the man who swore he would never become like Stefano. He smiled easily, loved deeply, and spoke endlessly about wanting a future free of lies. It was all an illusion. Years earlier, during a brief and emotionally volatile time in Los Angeles, Johnny had fallen into a secret relationship with a woman named Elena Moreno, a struggling actress hiding from a dangerous past. Their love was intense, reckless, and short-lived. Elena disappeared without a word. Johnny told himself it was over. What he never knew, what she never told him, was that she was pregnant. That child, Matteo Moreno, was now 5 years old. And he was living in Salem. Elena had returned under an alias, terrified that the Diamera name would destroy her son. But fate had its own cruel timing. Matteo had recently been hospitalized after collapsing at school, his blood disorder rare, genetic, and impossible to ignore. Doctors needed a match. Johnny's name came up. And with it, the truth. When Johnny was confronted by Dr. Kayla Johnson, the color drained from his face as the medical file slid across the desk. "You're the father," Kayla said quietly. "And your son is dying." Johnny collapsed into the chair, hands shaking. A father, without ever knowing. And someone in Salem already knew the truth long before he did. Elena had tried to stay hidden, but she underestimated Salem. E.J. Diamera found out first. When E.J. uncovered proof of Johnny's son, he didn't tell his nephew. He calculated, strategized, weaponized. Elena was summoned to the Diamera mansion under false pretenses. She knew instantly she'd made a mistake. E.J. laid out photos of Matteo, school records, medical reports. "You want your son safe?" E.J. asked calmly. "You'll do exactly as I say." Elena was forced to spy on Johnny, feeding E.J. information about his film projects, his relationships, and most importantly, his vulnerabilities. But it didn't stop there. E.J. used the child as leverage against Johnny himself, manipulating him into signing away creative rights, investments, and trust, without ever revealing the real reason. Johnny sensed something was wrong but never imagined the truth. Until the night Elena showed up at his door, sobbing, with Matteo in her arms. "Here's your son," she whispered. "And they are going to kill him if I tell anyone else." Johnny's scream echoed through the night. And someone was listening. The blood Melina discovered wasn't symbolic. It was real. Forensic tests confirmed it belonged to Matteo Moreno. Salem was thrown into chaos when the boy vanished from the hospital the same night the blood appeared in the crypt. Surveillance footage had been erased. Nurses were found unconscious. This wasn't a kidnapping. It was a ritual. Stefano Diamera's old journals, long believed destroyed, resurfaced in the Diamera archives. In them was a chilling theory that Diamera blood carried a rare genetic anomaly, one that could be activated through trauma and sacrifice. The journals spoke of a blood heir, a child whose suffering could secure the Diamera legacy forever. Someone had decided Matteo was that heir. Johnny was hysterical, blaming himself. "If anything happens to him," he told Chanel through tears, "I'll burn this family to the ground." And he meant it. Chanel Dupree had been keeping a secret of her own. Months earlier, she'd overheard a conversation between E.J. and Dr. Wilhelm Rolf. At the time, it sounded like mad science, talk of bloodlines, children, and necessary pain. She dismissed it. She shouldn't have. When the truth about Matteo surfaced, Chanel realized with horror that she had known just enough to stop it, and didn't. The guilt consumed her. When Johnny confronted her, his voice wasn't angry. It was broken. "You knew," he said. "And you let me live a lie." Chanel tried to explain, but nothing could erase the image of a child bleeding in the crypt while she stayed silent. Their marriage shattered in that moment. And Chanel made a decision. She would fix this, even if it meant betraying the Diameras. The most horrifying secret came last.
Mateo was never meant to live. EJ wasn't acting alone.
The mastermind was Susan Banks, or rather, the part of her personality no one knew existed. Years of psychological fractures had created something darker, sharper, and terrifyingly brilliant. Susan believed the Diamera family was cursed and that only through sacrifice could it be cleansed. Mateo was chosen because he represented both innocence and corruption.
Johnny's love. Diamera blood.
Susan orchestrated everything. The journals, the kidnapping, the bloodletting in the crypt, believing that once the ritual was complete, the Diameras would finally be free of Stefano's shadow.
But Johnny arrived before the final act.
The crypt doors burst open as he stormed inside, gun shaking in his hand. "Let him go."
Susan smiled serenely.
"You don't understand," she said. "This ends the curse." Johnny lunged forward as Mateo cried out, and a shot rang through the crypt.
Susan fell. The ritual ended. The curse remained.
Mateo survived, but barely. Johnny stayed by his bedside every night, whispering promises he didn't know how to keep.
EJ was arrested. Susan was committed.
Chanel left Salem, unable to face the wreckage. And the Diamera crypt was sealed once more, this time with fresh blood beneath the stones.
Molina later said it best. Salem isn't haunted by ghosts.
It's haunted by the secrets we refuse to bury. Johnny stood at the crypt weeks later, hand resting on the cold marble.
A father now.
A survivor.
And a man who finally understood the truth.